Okay, so right now we're gonna go over a real intertemporal model with investment. And my notes are starting to look a bit too much like our actual notes, which is kind of bad, but it's fine, whatever. So it's basically just intertemporal. Intertemporal just means more than one period. Investment basically means add in the firms. So this is like basically putting like the two things that we did together. So first, here are all the variables that we will be using. Oh, also cool thing, I realized I can like change like the background of this thing. So instead of like a white background, I made it like a cool yellow thing. So it kind of looks like an old paper thing. Except now I have to use like different colored highlighting. Anyway, so the main variables here will be the tax rate for the present and the future, profit, consumption, leisure, wage, rate. Basically the same thing as before. And similar to before, okay, so the things that are given are taxes. That makes sense. Like the taxes are like set by the government, it's given. Profit, so profit is given because I guess it's sort of assumed that the firm is sort of the thing that sets everything. So like the firm has to set the wage they're gonna pay and like the profit that they're gonna pay. And given that the consumer will choose how much to consume, how much leisure to take, and somehow the consumer or like somehow it also like ends up that the rate is something that they decide. I'm not too sure how that works because I thought that rate was like something that should have been given. But anyway, that's how it is in this model. Okay, so to maximize the total utility, we're gonna get the total utility from this period, just the utility of like consumption and leisure, plus the utility that comes from future consumption and future leisure, and then we're also gonna add like a beta, like a little number, and it's probably gonna be something that's like usually gonna be between 0 and 1, and it's sort of just to show that like the current happiness is sort of like worth more than the future happiness because you might be like, oh, like because you know how what's that word, we have present bias because we tend to like if we're gonna enjoy it right now, like we know we're gonna enjoy it, so there's no like uncertainty or whatever, so because of that we value current happiness over future happiness. So like our total utility in the future might like be like a bit less, so it's just like a little beta, just like a little thing there. So another thing, so our budget constraint is so basically the same as the thing that we had before with the C plus S equals Y minus T, but this time there's also pi because there are firms. So if we're gonna do, there are firms too. So period 1 is like the usual thing that we did before, so like the consumption and the total savings that we did is equal to our total income plus any profits like dividends minus the taxes that we have to pay. And this time there's also a period 2, which is like future consumption equals our future wage plus future dividends minus future taxes plus the savings that we use up during that time. And if we rearrange to solve for S, we get, like if we rearrange this period 2 equation to solve for S, we get this thing over here. And basically we can plug this thing over here into this equation. So we can do C plus, and then this entire thing. I just sort of broke this thing over here is these two things. I just broke it up like in advance. Like if you see, it's just like C over 1 plus R, and then like this whole thing over 1 plus R, and just like broke it up because we'll have to break it up later on. So we have this, and then equals W H minus L plus pi minus T, blah, blah, blah. And if we just rearrange this by moving this to the other side, we get that our current consumption plus the present value of future consumption is our current income. Like basically this is like how much we can consume, like our present value of our consumption is equal to the present value of our current income minus the present value of our future disposable income. Like our income in right now and our income in the future adds up to how much we can consume like throughout the entire periods, which makes sense. And it's like disposable income because it takes away, because you sort of like account for the fact that you might not have to pay taxes. I mean, you'll have to pay taxes. So this is just like, I think it's just like a reminder, kind of, just to reboot our memories. So we always have the leisure on the thing, on the bottom, on the x-axis, and the consumption on the top. We have our budget constraint, and our budget constraint, again, is that the first one, so this is for the present, this is for like the current income, not like the future period. And then we also have the slope of the indifference curve is the MRS, which is the MPL over the MPC. And at the point where it's perfect is where the MRS, so the slope of both lines are the same. So slope of this line, which is the MRS, equal to the wage. Cool. So M equal wage. Nice. And this is basically the same for the future. So if you were to have like L apostrophe here, and then C apostrophe here, it would just be the same thing. So the MRS equals like future wage. Cool. And okay, so another thing is comparing current consumption to future consumption. I feel like we already did this. Yeah, we already did this. It's just like sort of like a reminder. So again, it's the same thing, budget line, budget constraint, indifference curve. We want the MRS, so the indifference curve slope, to be equal to the marginal product of this one, or the marginal product of this one. So MP current consumption over MP future consumption. The slope of this line is -1 over R, because again, so we have that our like budget constraint total is like C plus C, or 1 plus R equals WE. Rearranging, multiplying by 1 plus R, blah, 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 we did this. So our slope over here is this guy over here. So it's -1 plus R, so we want that. So that's where they both are equal. Okay, next we have, so now we're going to look at the current labor supply. So basically at the end of the, is this CA? So basically at the end of this entire thing, we will sort of want to put like the labor supply in like a weird way where we compare like the interest rate to the labor. Wait, never mind, this is labor supply. Never mind, this is a different thing. So first of all, just some basics. So as the wage increases, the labor supplied will increase. Why is this? Because the substitution effect is greater than the income effect, which means that if the wage increases, then I, as a working person, will be like, damn, like I could get so much more money if I were to work. Why is this like, why is the marker like 3 hours behind? There's like a big lag. Anyway, I would think that if the wage is higher, like I could earn more money if I worked more, so I would want to work more. Substitution effect, blah, blah. So which means that if we were to plot wage and the labor supply, it would be an upwards curve. Another thing is the labor supply is also dependent on the rate. And so one question that I had is like, why is it a function of R and not like a function of like, I don't know, literally anything else? Like, why isn't it a function of, what else could it be a function of? It can't, it already is a function of W, so it'd be kind of dumb if I put like W here. But why is this a function of R? Because like the other options are all, so you can do a function of leisure, which doesn't make sense because like literally the opposite of labor. If we were to do consumption, that wouldn't really make sense too much. Like, in a way, it might be like, oh, like depending on how much that you want to consume, like either now or later, you might have to like work more or work less, whatever. And I guess, okay, so one reason that I had for why it could be R is that it sort of sums up everything. Like, it sort of sums up the fact that, you'll have savings and you'll want to save up, so which means you might have to work more, and you'll also like want to like consume more, so like you'll want to work more, blah blah. So sort of like sums up everything. I don't know, I'm assuming that's why. But like anyway, it's just like a function of the rate. Like it's just like that. Next is a thing, so if the rate increases, the labor supply increases. So our normal function is like of the wage and labor supply. And with a new R, where R2 is greater than R1, our curve will shift to the right. And why is this? Because if the rate is bigger, if the interest rate is bigger, the value of my savings will be bigger, because like, in the future I'll be able to like, I'll have more money, right? Because it's like saving times 1 plus R is how much consumption I have in the future. So if I have like a bigger R, then my entire like savings amount will be bigger. So since the value of my savings will increase, I will want to save more, and as a result, I'm gonna want to work more so that I can actually like save up more money. So yeah, that's that. Another thing is if the lifetime wealth increases, labor supply falls. And but this is like basically this is assuming that we have like the same interest rate. So basically it's like a change in dy, the future incomes or like the present incomes, like that's how the lifetime wealth would have to increase. And if the lifetime wealth were to increase, then how you got to think about it this way is because you're richer, so I can I can relax more, so I leisure more, and so I work less. That's it. So basically, if lifetime wealth increase like a leftward shift with like the same rate though, and if the rate were to increase, then it's a rightward shift, and if the wage increases, then it's just like the shift along the curve, like just like movement along the curve. Great. Now, cool. And then we're gonna look at the current demand for consumption goods. Hold on a second, did I do it? Yes. Current demand for consumption goods, and then firm. And then, Jesus Christ, there's so much. I might have to like break this up into like a few or like 2 videos. Okay, so the current demand for consumption goods is basically like just current consumption. So just like C. And we're just gonna be like, let's just like add like a little letter D at the top just to show that's like the demand for the consumption goods. Like it's not like a supply of the goods that are made, kind of. So it's going to be like C, D, and then the consumption is as a function of the rate in our income. So why is this? Oh look, I even have the whole thing here. I didn't even have to write my own stuff. So if the rate were to increase, then again, like before, like how we talked before, the value of my savings will increase. So I'll want to save up more. So my consumption, so the demand for my consumption will fall. So we see the current consumption falls and then future consumption rises. So this is from the consumer perspective, so like from like me and you perspective. So like this is what we would do. Another thing is it's also dependent on income, because if I have more income, I'll want to consume more, so this thing will increase. Also, if the lifetime wealth increases, then also, oh, what the hell? How did it change? Why does it keep changing? Then my consumption demand, like my demand for goods increases. And this is sort of the same thing as like the Y thing, basically. So the same thing as this guy over here, because like like wealth, like the lifetime wealth is like made up of the income. So yeah, just some basics. Another thing is firm. So remember, the firm's function is something like the SZ, where it's like the factor productivity, and then times like a multiple of the capital and the labor. And then same thing for like the future, basically just like add an apostrophe to like each of the factor productivity, the amount of capital that you'll have in the future, and the amount of labor that you'll have in the future, whatever. And one thing that we're gonna sort of okay, also there's another thing, there's investment in this. So investment could be like putting money into machines to like make them better. So for example, like, I don't know, just like repairs and maintenance for machines to like make sure that they actually like work for longer. So that's what investment is. And we're gonna sort of assume that $1 of investment delivers one more consumption good, or like for example, like $1, if I invest like $1 into like a machine, it can like, I don't know, pop out one more book, or like either one more book or like one more dollar worth of something. I'm not really sure. I think I have to assume that it's one more dollar worth of something, because it'll make more sense in the future when we talk about like some money stuff. So that's just something you gotta assume. Another thing is like we have a new letter here, D, which is the depreciation rate of the machine. So like, whatever. Makes sense. We already know what that is. So this is capital in the future, and capital in the future is basically capital in the past multiplied by whatever's left of it. So like multiplied by 1 minus the depreciation rate, which makes sense, right? Because you have to like basically subtract the amount of depreciation that has occurred. And they also have to add in any investment that has done. So remember this whole like $1 investment equals one more dollar of the good, whatever, kind of. And so like here, oh, okay, so this is this. So the 1 minus dk is basically what's left over at the end of the machine. And then 1 minus d times k apostrophe is what is left over after the second period. Because like this is like, with the apostrophe, so it's like after the period too. So like at the end of the entire like life, I guess. So the present profit is equal to the income that you make minus the wage times the number of hours, the labor that you have, whatever, minus any investment that you do. So the thing is, you'd only do investment in period 2, in period 1, because you do in the investment in period 1 and it's used up, or like you sort of like gain from it in period 2, in like the next period. Profit tomorrow is equal to like the wages tomorrow minus the income tomorrow minus the wage times the labor tomorrow, plus like sort of like the salvage value of the machine, so like 1 minus d times the k, so which is like what we did over here. Cool, great. So the present value of profits, which we're going to name as v, is equal to pi now plus pi tomorrow, discount at the interest rate, and we want to maximize this. Like, like as a firm owner, I'm going to want to maximize this. So there's that. And where are we going to? Oh my god, this is so long. I didn't expect this to be this long. Jesus Christ. Okay. So another thing is, well, not really. Where do we maximize this? We maximize this at the point where the marginal product of labor equals wage, and the marginal product of future labor equals future wage. So if we just plot a function of the income to the labor, and in this case, this curve over here, this like curvy curve, is the production line, and like that's like y equals z f k n whatever, and like the slope of that is equal to mpn. The slope of the straight line is basically like the labor, is basically like the cost curve, I guess. So it's like w times n. So basically like the wage you pay times the number of people, and the slope of this is wage. So at the point where these two intersect is where we want to be. So that's at the point where the slope of this, which is wage, equals the slope of this, equals the marginal product of labor, which is mpn equals w. Cool, great. Another thing is, just like something that we should keep in mind, is that while the labor supply compared to wage, so if this was like NS compared to wage, it would be this way. The labor demand is going downwards because this is a firm's demand for labor. And as a firm, like if the wage goes up, if the wage is like going like up, so for like over here instead of here, oh, there's such a lag. If the wage goes up, I'm gonna want to hire less people. So the whole, what is it? Wage, the whole employment that I hire will fall. Cool. So another thing is just basically the same thing as before. The marginal product of future labor equals to future wage. Just two things I have to keep in mind. Another thing, so for maximizing the total profits, it's this equation. We put them into their like their full formats, and we get this. And so we have this, great. And so we want, oh damn, why do we even do this? Hold on. So we want to, so the thing is, I guess there's like a lot of things here. What was that? What was the thing that we literally just did? MPN equals wage is a point at which profit is maximized. But things, we also have like this little like investment here. We don't really know what to do with it. So we're just gonna be like, choose the investment so that the marginal cost of investment equals the marginal benefit of investment. So from before, I said that the $1 extra that we put in of investment pops out $1 more of the consumption goods. So like if I don't know, half an apple was $1, that means that $1 of investment would pop out half an apple, kind of like that. Which means since there's like a 1-to-1 ratio, the marginal cost, which is the change in cost of the change in quantity, is just the dollar investment over the number of units that increases, which is like the exact same. So it's just like 1. So the marginal cost of investment is 1. Second, we have to equate it so that marginal cost equals marginal benefit of investment. So you have to calculate the marginal benefit investment. And we're like, what is that? Well, marginal benefit is a total benefit or utility over the total quantity. So the total benefit or utility is basically like the machine. Well, okay, so this isn't really, well, see the thing, oh, I see. Okay, I think I might have to cross this thing out over here, because the marginal benefit is basically just the machine extra that we get, like the extra part of the machine that we get, and any increase in the income that we get due to this extra like investment. Because it's like the marginal benefit, So it's like machine extra plus increases, not just like the total machine, like the total income. It's just like the extra and like the extra whatever. So the extra of the machine that we get is, right. So I'm slightly confused why that's that. Hold on. So the increase in the income is equal to the increase in the income, the future income that came from the increase in the, what is it? Okay, so with the new investment, what happens is that our future K is now bigger. And if your future K is bigger, that means that it can like pop out more, it can pop out more income, which means that we're gonna look at the increase in income that specifically came from this increase in K. And I'm sure you might think, I mean, you would believe, one would be assumed to believe, blah, 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 whatever, that it's a marginal product of the future capital, the future K. Because it's like, the income that came from the increase in K is just the future K. Cool. And so that's the increase in the Y, so this thing over here. And now for the machine extra, well, the machine, oh, I think I might actually have to have kept this change in quantity out, or whatever. The machine extra is, well, oh, yeah, no, I have to keep this in, but I have to take this one out, but I keep this one in because this is not in, like, only marginal terms, whatever, anyway. So this over here is what is left over of the machine at the end of the second period. And if we go down to that, if you sort of like isolate it in not like, sort of like derive it in terms of like K thingy, like take that function with respect to K, we just get 1 minus D plus MPK. And that's sort of our marginal benefit. So if we want our marginal benefit, oh right, we also have to like divide it by like 1 plus R to get into like the present value terms. So so this is our marginal benefit of investment. Basically the extra like depreciation that we get, which we wouldn't have gotten before, because let's assume that before this, by the end of the period, the machine, by the end of the entire lifetime, the machine would have been like completely, like, it would have been like a zero thing. But because of the investment, we have like some salvageable value. So it's just like 1 minus depreciation is that salvageable value, plus any marginal like little improvements, like marginal revenue that we get from the extra capital, and then all discounted to present value. So that is going to be our marginal benefit of investment. So now we have to equate the marginal benefit to the marginal cost. So the 1, which is the marginal cost, to this marginal benefit line, and we get that 1 blah blah blah, we get that R equals the marginal product of capital minus depreciation. And this actually, so basically this is sort of like a rate, or like the return on investment that a firm would have to get. And the return, if you think of it as a return on investment, kind of makes sense, because it's sort of like a benefit of the investment, like the marginal product, minus the loss. I mean, like, depreciation is a loss, so it's sort of like in like the loss of machine, blah blah blah. So sort of like a net return kind of thing. So that's the rate of return. So that's like the R. That's how you calculate the R, is just the MPK minus the depreciation rate. Another thing is, so this is called the optimal investment schedule. I don't know why it's called investment schedule. Like, it's just a formula. Anyway, the investment schedule is basically just this line, and which shows that if the R increases, the investment falls. And why is it? Because if the R is higher, that means you have to pay more interest on any like loans you have to take out, whatever. So you wouldn't want to take out too much loans. So if there's a high interest rate, you'll have to pay higher interest. So you wouldn't want to invest too much. So if R increases, investment falls. Another thing is, so if investment increases, that means that my future capital will increase. Like, it'll be bigger, it'll be better, yay. But if our future capital increases, that means that the marginal product of that future capital decreases. And this is just because like the whole, like, if x equals, like the marginal part of x falls. Like basically just that thing. Oh my god, why is there so much? How much longer is it gonna take? I remember taking government. Jesus Christ. Oh, okay, we're almost done actually. I mean, I'll have to put like another video of like one of the other things, but it'll be fine. This might be like 30 minutes long. So now so now we'll just be playing around with the whole like R equals MBK minus D formula. So first of all, if my future, this thingy, my future factor productivity were to increase, then what's going to increase? Well, first of all, my Y future is going to increase because, you know, the formula Y equals Z F K N. So if the Z increases and the Y increases, so yay. But if Y increases, then MPK also increases? Why the hell? Okay, it's not really like Y increases, MPK increases. It's more like if this guy, if my, this thing over here increases, then I'm gonna, as a firm, I will want to hire more people in the future. And if I hire more people in the, wait a second, hold up, this is future, this is present MPK. Why is it affecting present MPK? Okay, hold on. So we know that MPK equals, R equals MPK minus D. Cool. And if R increases, then I falls. Cool. First of all, if my Z thingy increases, then my future Y increases. I get that. Great. But for some reason, if this happens, then MPK rises? What? Okay, so like depreciation won't be affected. Like that's kind of dumb. Why would it be? But why would MPK, why would the present marginal product of my MPK rise? If I knew that in the future, total factor productivity, if I knew that in the future everything, like all my machines and all my people will be more productive, why will the marginal product of my current capital increase? I just don't really get the jump from here to here. Let's think. I have a firm and I'm like, yo, I know that, you know, next, like tomorrow, everybody else is gonna be so much more productive. Why would that make my now people more productive? Or like, why would that mean that my marginal product of current, so I'm thinking it might have to do something with the fact that something to do with how, okay, so if we have a machine, okay, first of all, wait, no, never mind, that's also, which one is it? Okay, so first of all, if okay, yeah, I think I might get it, but then you won't really exercise the benefits. Okay, whatever. If my future factor productivity goes up, if I know it's gonna go up, I'm gonna be like, damn, like, I should probably, like, you know, like, leech off of that, so I'm gonna invest a lot more now. So I'm gonna want to invest more, and also know that, you know, my future production will also increase. And if I'm investing more now, then the amount of stuff that I get out of my capital right now is going to increase because of that investment. I guess that's how we can think about it. Like, that's like the only thing I can think of. So because of that, R increases. Because R equals MPK minus D. MPK increases and R increases. So it's just like a shift to the right of this MPK minus D firm. Minus D curve. So it's just like a higher interest rate and a lower, higher investment and lower interest rate. Cool, Z's. Oh, and this is basically saying like, oh, this is my bad. It's not a lower interest rate because, oh, never mind. It's, I forgot what I said. Number two, if K were to increase, well, if K were to increase, we know that MPK were to decrease. Oh, what the hell? What? Okay, what I don't get actually is this MPK is our current marginal product of capital. So why doesn't it just go from if K increases, then current MPK increases? Why is there like this little middle guy to show, oh my god, future thing will increase. Maybe sort of like a ratio, I guess. Like we don't want it all to increase too much in the future. So like you raise it a bit like right now. Like if I, no. What? Okay, whatever. Let me think videos for me. Let's think. Uh, okay, you know what? I think I'll just come back to this later once I figure it out. But before I go that, I'm just gonna like to sum up with like, there's also a factor with the government. The government spends, the government gets taxes. B, which is the government spending minus the government like revenue taxes, is a budget deficit. So like if the government spends more than that they have, they're going to be in a deficit. Blah blah. Their total spending has to equal to the total taxes, and it's just like G equals T is sort of like an important thing, and this will be used later on.